we're going to talk about splits and when the right thing to do it, but some of you may not, if you're new, even understand what a split is or why we do this, right? I'm going to talk to you at a low level, but I'm going to cover all the bases so I don't leave anybody behind, okay? And if you have a question, please feel free to ask. In the concept of hive, the colony itself at this time of year has just come out of winter. Its objective is to swarm. It wants to increase the species of bees by issuing a swarm. So from winter, in the time that the trees start budding and the forage starts to become available, they're building two workforces, one to stay and one to go. And the premise of a swarm is that the queen colony in the original hive, she is going to set in motion the premise of leaving with a workforce and still leaving the mother colony with the ability to survive, okay? So fundamentally, where are we today? If you brought a hive through winter, next week, my opinion, is gonna be boom, right? You're gonna get that warm day. All these trees are in bud. You've seen some trees have already flowered. The early flowers are up. You're starting to see dandelion and they're open to the point where they could use it. You're gonna start seeing clover. So next week, all of these things that are in bud are literally going to open up in the morning and they're going to have their forage and they're going to start loading in pollen and nectar. When that starts happening, they're going to fill that hive right down through the brood chamber and then the swarm will issue. We work very hard with our bees as hobby beekeepers or even the commercial industry, and we don't want to see our bees fly away. We want to build more hives or replace hives or do whatever. So there's a lot of reasons why you split a hive, right? You want more bees. You want to increase your stock in New Jersey. You want to give bees to somebody else or sell them or whatever, these other things. What you have to understand as a beekeeper is your hive ready to go. Now, ideally, New Jersey, the typical construct is you come out of winter with 2 deeps. Nomenclature. Look at the boxes over there. The bottom box, the brown one, the white one sitting on top of it, is a deep hive. There are shallow boxes and there are medium boxes. Most New Jersey beekeepers, 2 deeps coming out of winter. There is a prevailing theory growing in the bee space right now that you'll have 3. Now, equipment goes in all shapes, formats. Some people run all medium hives. They run 3 mediums instead of 2 deeps. A typical conventional hive has 10 frames in it. Some run 8. What you're going to do when you get to days like this, are you're going to go and inspect your hive and determine whether it's a candidate for a split. When are you a candidate for a split? First thing you have to do is have an abundance of bees. The next thing you need to do is you need to have an operating queen, and she needs to have good brood patterns. Some of you don't even know what that means. We'll go over that, right? We're going to go in the hive. We're going to do a basics, show you. Here's egg, here's larvae, here's brood. But we're also going to talk about splitting, okay? So we'll cover all of that, and you'll get hands-on. And we'll literally take the frames out and hand them around, and you'll be able to look at them, and we'll teach you how to look in them. And so you can make some of these things that I'm going to tell you. You need to be able to see eggs. The premise of a split is this. You have 1 queen in the hive. She is going to go into swarming mode. She is going to create new queens to replace her, daughter queens. A lot of times what you want to do is you want to get there before that happens. So you'll take frames of brood out and put them over here, and if they have eggs that are 2 days or newer, the bees will make a new queen over here. Once they start making queens here, that old queen is going to fly and they're going to take over the hive. So you're doing a preventative action by splitting the hive, preventing them from swarming, okay? If you live in a world where you want swarms to happen, don't do anything and they will. Question.
How do you know if you missed the boat?
How do you know if you missed the boat? When you go in the box and the box has less bees in it because they've swarmed, you've missed the boat.
You see the bees bearding on the front of the hive? Is that
that should not be a problem,
I see.
but you're on the cusp of a problem. Listen, if you open your hive and every single face is covered with bees and every top of the frame is covered with bees and it's loaded chock full and you have not put boxes on top and they're loaded, let's talk about why a swarm occurs to that point. The typical MO for a swarm is that the bees are building brood right now. They're building bees. If you all stood close together like you are in the hive, we're all close together. Now all lay down. When they all emerge out of the cells and they're standing this way, it gets very crowded. That means two things. I can't smell the queen anymore. I lost the pheromone, the scent of the queen who glues everything together. I have no queen, what do I gotta do? I gotta make a new one. The other side of this is, I'm very crowded. Everything I do, I keep bumping into somebody, and this is not an efficient operation, and bees, by God, are efficient. So they decide they're gonna swarm. I have all this room in my house, and I brought all this nectar and pollen, and I got even more available to me, but I got no more room. Some of you gotta go. Get out, I need more room. So at this point, when you have bearding is when they're so packed inside the hive, they come out and they stay on the outside of the hive for various reasons. A lot of times you see it for heat. You put more boxes on. You give them more room to work. A typical brood chamber can grow to 3 boxes easily. And that's a great workforce if you're trying to do honey. And you could easily put 2, 3, 4 honey boxes on a good flow, right? So what you're trying to achieve here is you're making more bees, whatever your objective. Another reason people do splits is because when you split the hive and you have this one over here that has to make a queen, they have no brood. Where do the varroa live? In with the drone and in the brood. You break the brood cycle, you have a generation that has no brood and they're not parasitized by the varroa and they grow up clean, right? So there's other reasons to do this, but you know, again, you could talk all day about this. Let's talk about mechanics, okay?
If you see queen cells, is it too late also to split?
If you see queen cells, it's not too late. So I heard, what's varroa? I'll answer that question because you're going to learn that and you're going to hear it till you're sick of hearing it. But if you think about the tick that you get walking around in the field on us or the dogs, varroa is like a tick for the bees. And it latches on. It came over in the 90s and it's the scourge of beekeeping because varroa grow and grow and grow and they do nothing but feed on the bees. They hook in, they make a hole, they suck on the hemolymph, which is equivalent of bee blood, but they also vector viruses. So deformed wing virus and Israeli acute paralysis virus and all of these things come from varroa.
Did they come from China?
They came from Asia, yes. Yeah. So, and the Asian bee can work with the varroa, but Apis mellifera, the Italian bee, the Carniolan bee that we have here in the United States, they're not equipped yet by nature to do this. So right now, varroa infestations, you heard Bob say that some of the hives here did not survive because they were not treated for varroa. So that's the logical outcome. Have to manage your varroa or your hives are not going to survive. And if you think about going back to the state apiarist and how, what kills bees in New Jersey, it's lack of varroa management and they starve. Those two things. So the other thing that happens at this time is you have an abundance of forage and they have no place to put it. So they're storing the nectar in around the periphery and they run out of room. So they start storing it down into the brood chamber area. Now the queen has no place to lay. Something's got to go. That's another indication of when they're going to swarm, is they start backfilling the brood chamber. So there's a lot of biology in this. I'm not going to go crazy. Let me switch now to splits, how you do it. Simple formula. You have to make a colony that's going to survive. If you think about what's inside a hive, what's in there? Bees, brood, honey, pollen, and a place for the queen to lay. What do you think you're going to pull out of a hive, operational hive, out of the origin, and put into your hive? Bees, pollen, honey, nectar, and brood. So the method that we're going to show you today, and let me tell you, if you go look up beekeeping splits, you will find chapter and verse, various versions of whatever. We stay basic here. There's things like the Desmarais method, two queen systems, all these things. You could literally take a box that's 2 deeps and it has brood chamber in both. In other words, you're taking frames out and you're seeing brood in both. And you could pick one up and take it over here and put it down and cover it up and do a walk-away split, and it'll become a hive. That's how complicated it is. The key thing about it, though, is it has to have eggs in the right makeup to make a new queen, or you didn't do it right. So we're at a point where we want to make splits of these hives. And by fundamental principle, we're going to come up with a new what in one of the boxes? Queen. That queen is a virgin queen. She needs to mate. You can't do splits when you don't have drones. So what you want to look for in your hive, or you want to understand in your beekeeping timing, is when will drones start appearing on the scene. Because let's say 3 months ago I made a split and now I have this queen that came out and she's got nobody to mate with. So they understand the biology, and you have to do it in the right time frame. You could make a split and get a queen and put it in there and do it that way. But what we're doing is nature's way of splitting, where there's going to be drones in abundance, and the queen is going to leave after she grows and hatches, emerges is the right word. She's going to go to the drone congregation area and get fertilized, right? And come back and make the new colony. Question?
If there's more than one queen cell at the bottom, should they kill one? Or the other ones, or let them all?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'll get to that. Let me put a pin in that and I'll come back to it.
I'll remind you.
So what I said, you want to make a split. You're going to go in your hive and you're going to look for the things it needs to survive after you rate it. Let me not put it a different way. You're taking resources away from the mother. By the way, the mother hive is going to have a setback, but if you leave them with the right resources, they will recover in short order. And right now, on the verge of spring and huge nectar flow, is the time to do it, because they will have no better opportunity to recover, okay? I'm going to go in my hive and I'm going to see an abundance of brood, abundance of bees, abundance of resources, and I'm going to be able to pull 4 frames out and make a 5-frame nuke. If you're not familiar with the term, nuke hive is that small box. It's a half a hive in miniature. And as a new beekeeper, this is a great tool for you, or a seasoned beekeeper, because it's so easy to work in a nuke hive. It's all right there. And they tend not to build a lot of drones and wonky comb and all this other stuff, right? And you have like the education kit right in front of you. And it's the Ginsu knife of beekeeping, because you can make new hives from it. You can make new queens with it if you learn how to do that. You can make new comb with it. You could use it as a resource. And we've talked about this, right? You can collect swarms with the equipment that you have. So there's a number of reasons why nukes are good strategy for you. I'm going to go in my hive, which I've already confirmed has all the resources I need to make a split. I'm going to go in and I'm going to find a brood frame. I'm going to find one that's capped, and I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to take the bees with it that are on it. If I have a capped frame and it has some open brood on it, what kind of bees are on that frame?
Nurse bees.
Nurse bees. Importante. Nurse bees. Now, are there foragers on there too? Yeah, probably. We'll get to that in a sec. I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put it in my box. I'm going to take the next frame out. It's going to have 2-day eggs or younger. Now you say, how do I know it's 2 days? It's teeny tiny. When they're laid, they stand straight up and then they curl. If they're big, fat, grubby looking things, they're not 2 days. So the only way to know if it's 2 days or not is we'll show you some examples and you'll look at the size. But if it's a miniature size of, you know, a rice grain, it's 2 days. Okay, we'll show you. That's the best way I can tell you. I can't describe it. Why do I need 2 days? What did I say? To make a queen, right? You have to have 2 days or younger and they'll feed it royal jelly and make a queen.
That's before they cap it?
Before they cap it, right? So you're looking at in the cells, you're holding it up, you got the sun shining, you see the egg, and you know it's there. If it's 2 days or older, they won't make a queen, and the younger that egg is, the better the quality of the queen you're gonna get.
And if it's capped, they won't make it.
And if it's capped, it's not eligible.
It's good, but not for a queen.
So I pulled this frame out and I put it in. Now, bees need to eat. And they need two things. They need pollen and they need nectar. Pollen is their steak and eggs, protein, and the nectar is the carbohydrate. So I'm going to pull one of them out. How many frames do I have?
3.
I have 3, right?
You're calling honey nectar.
I'm honey and nectar, right? You could pull both capped and you could pull both nectar that's uncapped. They're going to need both. So that's where I'm going to go. I probably want 2 frames of food. Now, think about the mixture that I just made here. Uncapped bees and capped bees. Uncapped honey, capped nectar. I have made provision for the short term and the long term. Okay? Short term, the bees are going to emerge. They're going to be the workforce very soon. The ones that are not capped will eventually get capped. They'll be the workforce later on. They will make a queen, okay? And that queen will emerge. When the queen comes out, she's got to go out and mate. So she's going to come out, she's going to orient for a couple days, she'll go out and mate, she'll come back, she'll get acclimated inside the hive, and then she'll start laying. And her workforce, they say it takes 45 to 50 days for that hive to get up and running to the same capacity as it was for the mother hive when it got removed. So you're not going to take this hive and have it be a honey producer for you. You're building a new colony, right? Question.
When you do this, how many drones do you need to have over in the nuke?
So you want to be in an area, and by the way, New Jersey is reasonably safe, where if you're seeing drones emerge from your mother colony, you've got enough drones in New Jersey that you shouldn't have a problem. If you're a queen maker in Georgia, you're going to have a queen yard and you're going to have a drone yard and you're going to self-fulfill that prophecy, right? But here in New Jersey this time, you know, if you're walking around your property and you're seeing bees, there's bees in the neighborhood, you should be okay. And drone congregation areas, the joke is it's the single bars for bees. It could be over there up above the tree line and it's there for generations. So typically if there's bees in your area and you're not in some remote island, you're going to have drones when you see them emerging from your hive.
So you don't have to worry about the drones being on the frames when you're doing that?
You don't, because when the queen goes, she's going to go find the drones that are in the neighborhood. And you want her to have your local neighborhood genetics, right? So that's the good thing. Keep your queens local. If you're doing well with your queens here in New Jersey, you know, you buy them from Georgia and eventually they're going to mate with the boys next door anyway. That's the way it goes. So
the queen only mates once?
The queen mates multiple times.
There you go.
She's going to multiply probably, you know, a good queen could be mated with a dozen or 15, 18 drones. She's going to get that genetic stock from...
It's got to get fertilized each and every time.
Yeah. She's going to go out and she might go out for days and mate, right, to get her spermatheca full of sperm from all the various drones that she's
got
gonna.
a reservoir.
Yeah.
She holds it. She's like a couple thousand eggs a day, and they all have to be fertilized if they're not going to be drones.
So I want to come back to your question.
Extra queen.
When you have queen cells in your hive, what do you do with those? You missed it, and they have it. This is not a bad thing, right?
Let the hive take care.
You're already actually in a good place. When you pull that frame out, if you have a queen cell, put it over here. That was a queen. It was going to be intended to be a hive anyway, right? When you do that, you know, you're going to pull those queen cells out. You pull a couple of them, right, and give diversity here. What happens in a queen deal? Let's say that our hive, let me go on a tangent for a second and explain this. The hive is set up and it's preparing to swarm. Why doesn't she just make one queen cell and be done with it? They're going to go through and pick a number of queens. Some of them were 2-day-old larvae, some of them were 1-day-old larvae, and all of a sudden you go in your box and you see all these. A queen cell looks like Mr. Peanut. It literally looks like a peanut hanging off the frame. It has that same outside texture. It's kind of uncanny. So you'll see a bunch of them. In old folklore, they tell you go around, kill all the queens to prevent a swarm. Don't do that. If that queen is already left and you go kill all the queens, now you're queenless. That's not a good play, okay? Your idea is to learn how to get it so that they're not building queen cells or manage when the queen cells come. And by the way, how much does a queen cost today?
25.
Every one of those queen cells is a $25 bill, right? So you have all these queen cells and they're going to swarm. She issues the swarm and goes. The daughters start emerging. You would think the one that was 2 days old has a head start on everybody else, and she emerges. The typical MO when a queen emerges is she wants to win, so she's going to go down and tear down all the other ones. Partway down the journey of making a queen, the bees understand what's a good queen to some extent, and they'll see a queen that was 2 days old. They might tear that cell down before she emerges, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in there that we don't quite understand yet. If that 2-day queen comes out first, the bees might trap her and prevent her from getting to the other ones. And you might literally see multiple queens running around inside your hive, and then they'll figure out which one's going to win. Maybe they like this one, and she goes around and stings all the other queens and tears the cells down, and she becomes the mother, right? You can take those frames out, pull frame of brood, pull a frame of honey. What we're going to do today, pull multiple frames out, and then you have queen cells, and you cut each one out and you put them in each box, and now all of a sudden you have queens already. You got a head start on it. So as you get better at this and more advanced, you could use that to your advantage.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Taking
What was
in
it?
the queen cell and putting it in a
Thank
queenless
you.
snoop box, right? How do you adhere that to the frame, or do you just sit it in there? Where do you put that?
Yeah, so the question is, you got a queen cell on a face, take your penknife, you cut it out. By the way, it's sometimes you got to cut through brood, but that's the way it goes. You could take a little bit of honey on the back and dab it and stick it. You could take a literal pin and put it, as long as it's hanging down,
Right.
however you fasten it.
So you could have an empty frame and just put her in there too, right?
You have an empty frame, you could, you know, just like you're going to take a queen cage and secure it, same concept actually.
Careful.
You could cut a hole in a frame and stick one inside the other. I mean, yeah, all of a sudden, look, hey, you know.
Got a mommy.
So what we're going to do here today is we're going to look at the number of resources available in our mother hive, and we're going to pull out and make as many splits as we can, and we're going to grow our apiary. That's our objective today. So let me ask, I'll stop. Questions? Yes.
How far away should the new one be, the new hive be from your one?
That's a good question, because there's a little trick to this.
Because you want them to get rated.
I said something that was important, and I want to make sure that everybody comes away with this. I'm pulling frames of bees out, and I'm putting them over here. Now, that bee a few minutes ago was in the origin hive, the mother hive. They've oriented to the sun, and when they go out, they're going to come back and go right in that hive. It's really weird if you take a mother hive and you move it 4 feet and you stand there and watch, all the bees will come back to this spot and they'll be spinning around. And then eventually they'll go find a hive somewhere. So we've just taken bees out and we've put them there. I said something that was really pivotal to making a swarm, which is nurse bees stay with the brood. They're not loyal to the queen. They stay with the brood. And in fact, when you're making a nuke box, it might be a good idea to take some of those frames that you didn't take out of the mother, which have nurse bees on them, and shake them over here into your nuke, and then take it and put it back. You've just stolen some nurse bees to come in here and be the workforce.
How do you recognize the nurse? They're tiny?
They're on the brood.
Oh.
They're loyal to the brood, okay?
They'll clean the chain.
Think about the chain of events. They emerge from the cell, brand new bee, and they go through their various stages until they become a forager in life. One of those stops is to be a nurse bee. And when they're a nurse bee, that's what they do for a living. She is not going to change anything but be a nurse bee until she's pushed out of that role, right? So you make your change and you brought all the bees over and now they're in the nuke box and now you let them fly. Maybe the foragers who were loyal to the queen are going to exit your hive and go back to the mother. But the nurse bees are going to stay with your brood.
So as soon as you make a nuke, do you seal it up to keep the foragers in?
So you could do one of two things. What Bob said is we're literally going to take these nukes and we're going to remove them to another property. They're going to come out, they're going to look at the sun, they're going to look at the landmarks, the surrounding, and they go, we're not in Kansas anymore. I think I'll stay here. Okay? So that's the premise of moving them. Now, if you move them over and a couple of them go back, that's why we shook a couple of those extra nurse bees in there. Now, what's the one thing, the last thing I'll leave you when making a nuke, what's the one thing you want to manage if you're doing this? Who's the most important person? Bee, the queen, right? So if your intention is to move things out and you're not taking the queen and you're moving it away, make sure you know what you're doing with the queen. Now there's two philosophies on this. When a swarm issues, who goes with it?
The old thing.
The old queen, the original one. Mama leaves it to her daughters, okay? So when you make a split, a natural concept is that you would take the queen and put her in the new box. And then let them raise a new one, right? Or in theory, they've already started, they have queen cells. I don't honestly, again, I said there was 20 ways to do a split. It's what's your objective. Some people just take frames at harvesting. They don't want the queen because they just went and bought this shiny new one over here. And they're going to put that one in. They control their own destiny. So this is the other side of it, is if you want to control your destiny, you could go to some queen producer who produces magic queens and use their queens instead of raising your own. Okay? So with that, I think it's probably a good time to switch.
If your queen is failing and you've left her there, they're going to make a new queen anyway, so you probably end up getting a new queen anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, making a new queen is the right answer. Sometimes it's risky business, but they're ordained to do whatever they're going to do from that standpoint, right? Nature will run its course. So